All right, this is the Minturn Town Council meeting for March 20th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Dusty here. Brian here.
Lynn here.
Eric here.
Terry here.
Earl here and
Kate here.
Kate is on Zoom. Okay, would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? You too, Kate. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Okay. Next, we have the approval of the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything? It's just the minutes and then the letter to CDOT about the Westfield, or to the governor about the Westfield. Do we want to read that? Or not? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
I believe that was Brian made the motion. Eric, I don't know why I can't ever, I'm not used to your voice, I guess. Eric and Dusty, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have that taken care of. Next, we have the agenda. And you promised me there's no amendments or deletions.
That's correct.
Next, we have declaration of conflicts of interest. Is there anyone on the board that has a conflict of interest for any item on the agenda tonight?
Yes, I will be recusing from the planning commission as my husband is one of the applicants.
Do we have to approve the regular agenda?
I already did that.
I thought we did. I never
Didn't
did
I?
that one. I
Oh, I
thought we
did, okay.
There was no motion.
Okay, how
I'll
about
make a
regular
motion.
agenda? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda as presented. Second.
okay.
Sorry, Lynn.
Looking like Dusty, second.
Brian.
Brian. All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? And no conflicts of interest?
Yes.
Yes, Terry and Lynn, you were going to say you were
Right.
yourself. Okay.
Not aware of Lynn's conflict? 3A is on the.
Oh, you're zoning.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
all right.
Thank you.
Forgot already.
Which one? Do you have a conflict with?
I have a conflict with resolution 13. So.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Oh, we're done. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, next we have the Eagle, public comment. So we have, this is the time when people, any citizens want to address the council on any item that's not on the agenda. Now is the time. That's on the agenda, so y'all can't speak yet. Jay?
No, there's nobody online.
Okay, moving on. Manager's report. No council comments. Eagle, I told you I'd be disorganized tonight. Eagle Valley Transit Authority update.
Yes, that's the reminder for you to give the update.
I have news, which of course the Vale Daily spoiled it for me though, but anyway.
I read it.
I'm gonna announce it anyway for anybody that hasn't heard. Last week, the board, the Regional Transit Authority board approved Minturn, Red Cliff and Eagle for entry into the fare free zone. So we not only have 3 new round trips coming through the town, we also will be fare free beginning May 19th. Which is a full 6 months ahead of schedule. Minturn will have free bus rides from Vale to Eagle, while I don't have the route configuration for Eagle yet.
And that will be all bus rides.
Huh?
That will be all bus trips through Minturn are free.
Yep, from there to anywhere between here and Eagle. So all the bus stops remain the same at this time. But will be the existing routes won't change. Okay, so the additional new routes in the morning will start at Malloy Park at 10:15. So we have the 8:15 and the 9:15 at Malloy. This will be an hour later at 10:15. And we'll arrive at Forest Rivers at 10:28. After going through all the stops. This will then arrive at Vale Transportation Center this bus will arrive at Transportation Center at 10:35. the same bus will then pick up passengers and head back to Minturn and arriving at Forest Service at 10:46 and then go through all the stops in Riversworth. Transfer times for people that want to go west, they'll get off at Forest Service. And the transfer times will be very low. They're increasing the routes on highways, the Valley Route on Highway 6. So with that, we're not, now transfer times are unpredictable because sometimes you have, overcrowded bus, that kind of a thing, but, they're roughly between 4 to 6 minutes as far as transfer times on the rush hour, the 2 rush hour routes, which is the early morning and the early afternoon routes. And then the midday route will be starting at the transportation center at 10:46. We'll go through Minturn, all stops, and arriving in Redcliffe at 11:53. And then continue on returning to Minturn and be at 996 Main at 11:01. And we'll end up at the Vail Transportation Center at roughly 11:52. So that's kind of the run on it. We also have the evening route, excuse me. That's starting at 7:15. And running through the Forest Service at 7:28 and the Vail Transportation Center at 7:35.
I have a question
Uh-huh.
too, and it was kind of interesting. I was over at Gold, walking through the parking lot, and I saw Tim McGuire get off this shuttle. It was a Epic Mountain Express shuttle, in the parking lot, and a bunch of skiers, and they were all from Eagleville. And it was a specific skier shuttle that took them right to Old Peak on Saturday and Sunday. And we should ask about that. It was just, it wasn't, it was outside the norm. I wonder, obviously Eagleville must pay something for it, but wow, like if we could cut down on our skiers just on a weekend, like they could take the bus in and then they could all ski on. It would be
I
awesome.
wonder if that was the express route. We had the free express route this winter to see what ridership was like.
It was an Epic Mountain Express shuttle, so we should ask him what he did. I didn't want to interrupt him because he was going skiing, but I just said, "What are you doing?" He said, "We have a skier shuttle from Eagleville." And I was like,
Well, it's probably the Metro District paid for it.
well, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Something I'll look into.
That was a Epic Express. That's like the new CME.
We only need it one way.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right.
There are a lot of people, I'm sure Kate would kind of chip in on this too, because she lives right there, that go and park at the bottom of the mile around in afternoons.
Yeah.
And then they'll shuttle around and ski back.
Yeah.
And like a Friday afternoon, Saturday afternoon shuttle would
We're one of
probably be
those
pretty
people,
packed.
yeah.
Yeah. We're always trying to
But
figure
they
out who's gonna
have
drive.
parking over there and, people could just, it'd be awesome.
Okay.
We should ask him. Yeah.
We'll get a Minturn Ski Club and do it.
Minturn Ski Club, Minturn Mile Ski Club.
Yeah. So, it is now Terry time.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, this is our last full meeting. After going through since 2016, right?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, now immediately they put her on the most torturous board to be on this, the Battle Mountain Committee.
I asked for it.
Yes, you did. So anyway, I just want to let Terry know how important she's been, certainly to me, as far as helping, being always well-read, always asking fantastic questions, always prepared. And you've just been a great council person, and
Thank you.
you will be missed.
Thank you so much.
And if anybody else wants to say anything, please do.
Yeah, please do.
I know what Earl said. I've only been on 4 years with you, Terry, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks for everything you do for the community, and it's always great to see you on Wednesday.
Still do the
Yeah.
concerts and
She's just taking a 2-year break. She'll be back.
I'll still do the concerts and.
And now you can be,
I'm just gonna be
going up
like
to the
over there.
podium and torturous.
I can't wait to get my pitchfork out, you guys. I'm gonna stand on the end.
Okay, well, at this time, we're gonna take a recess.
Okay.
it's.
Enjoy some celebratory cake.
Yay.
Of course.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
I was not expecting this. I expect
Next item on the. Knew that was gonna happen. Is the manager report.
More council comments?
Oh, yeah, oh, y'all got something to say? Oh, okay, well, starting at you, Gussie.
I'm good.
I had a few things. It was good to see the letter from CDOT in the consent agenda, but I think it was also good to see Avon's council stepping up and making some comments and pressing CDOT and the governor again after the third fatality in 3 years on Highway 6 over in Eagleville. Third pedestrian fatality in the same spot. And I think that's a similar situation to us where it's like a state managed highway that people are trying to walk and cross, and the really redundant circular restrictions and inane laws that and rules that CDOT have are being kind of picked apart, and it's good to see that. So I think what I took from it though is that we should be careful when we do our speed study, because it sounds like it's kind of this circular thing where if the speed study shows people going a certain speed too fast, then they won't allow raised crosswalks and things like that to slow people down. So if people aren't going slow enough, they won't let you put infrastructure in to slow them down, which is the most backwards thing I've ever heard. So we should just pay really close attention to make sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot with the speed study and harming our ability to do traffic stuff in the future, traffic calming. Note on bike parking at Spence and at the whiskey place. That sounds awesome. I was really excited to see that, and thanks for doing that. But I think I should reiterate that I talked to a friend who owns who's a local here in Minturn and owns a bike rental company in Vail, and there's several bike rental companies in Vail, and he only sees rental e-bike tourism traffic increasing. And I think that we should be prepared as a community to start seeing 100 to 200 people a day on busy days showing up in town on e-bikes. And we should be prepared with signage and parking and businesses ready to accept their patronage and all sorts of things. Just kind of be prepared for them coming in on the new eco trail, which is great. Childcare, I had a quick note that I wanted to ask if there's any updates on, I saw an update on the Vail Daily, but have they talked at all about priority for Minturn residents or business owners? Or
They have not.
They have not, okay. That's something that I think we should approach them about, because I think our community plan, you know, making town livable for full-time residents and kids and local employees, and that would also keep traffic to a minimum over there. So I think we should approach them on that. And the last thing I had was, it's been really fun over the last couple weeks with daylight savings, just kind of walking around and seeing our neighbors and having conversations and seeing people that we haven't seen since it got dark. So I just think that's what makes the community special, and I would encourage everybody to go for a walk after work and go say hi to your neighbors and meet the newborns who were born over the winter and meet the new dogs, right? And everything. And it just makes you kind of truly appreciate where we live. And I think maybe we should organize something like that on like First Fridays or something where everybody in the community just goes for a walkabout, and we encourage that. So that's it.
Thank you, Brian. One thing I did want to make sure, my understanding is the Eagle Valley daycare is taking over. I forget the full name of them, but they'll be starting renovation in April. And evidently, I called Sue Romero right away just to make sure she's plugged into it, and she's happy to hear it's happening. And so hopefully she'll be one of them, continue to be a mainstay there. But she was thinking, she'd heard that the renovation may take a while, so it may be into January of 2025 before they're done, which doesn't really surprise me. But anyway, also, and one thing I forgot to mention with the new fare-free routes is I'd like to have everyone in town and get the word out that on May 19th moving forward, we've really been working hard to make this happen, and I'm hoping that this will turn into a great thing where people, instead of getting in their car and driving to a parking lot somewhere in Beaver Creek or Vale, or going whatever they do to drive out of town, they can instead, this will be good enough to where they can rely on it and hop the bus, go wherever they need to go. And if that happens, then we can greatly reduce a lot of traffic in town here. We're still exposed to the fact that it's a federal highway, but and the Leadville traffic, but I think and in the next 2 or 3 years, I think we will have Leadville and Lake County signed on to a lot more buses. And if we can really use this service, and we can get the Leadville 500 under control, then maybe we will actually reduce traffic in our town. So I'm urging everybody to try it out, and I'm going to be, Susan, I think I'll be on the bus all day May 19th, just going where to see where I can go. And I think that'd be a great thing for everybody. Obviously it won't cost you a penny, so please do. And with that, we'll go on to the next section. We have the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my manager's report is in the packet. I will just make a note on a comment from Councilmember Rodine. That he is correct about the speed studies and how those work in regards to if we have a lot of speeders, it actually works negatively against Minturn. And I will say over the past many weeks and into the months, a lot of our speeding tickets have come from local residents. So if we could just ask our locals to please slow down on Main Street and on the side streets. More issues on the side streets with locals going the wrong way on one-way roads. So if we could follow the one-way road signage, that would just be so great. Our locals are also struggling with stopping at stop signs. So if we could come to full stops at stop signs, that'd be great. And just as someone that uses the intersection at the north end of Pine Street, if you're coming, and I don't mean to get on a soapbox with traffic, but if you're coming south onto Pine Street off of Toledo, if you could not cut that corner, that'd be great. Because the people that are stopped at that stop sign by the fire department don't want to get hit. So just yes, it is a huge detriment to Minturn. If we have speeders in town, it'll work against us and it could even raise the speed limits. So we have formally put in the request for the speed study. I'm very hopeful that our speeds will come down through town. The speed study is through the Malloy Park area. So hopefully the whole section of town has a chance of getting lowered, would be great. Additionally, we continue to work on progress to rehabilitate tank number 2. We are currently looking at the master meter pit for installing the valve for the pressure vault. Or the pressure valve for the vault. So that looks like it could be a really inexpensive option and eliminate Minturn's need to go back to CDPHE for another environmental study. So we're hopeful on that front, more to come. I have also talked to Jared Limke about membrane water treatment plants. I have the next installment of Minturn's water newsletter getting ready to go out in the coming days. It's being reviewed by legal right now. And that will identify that we, heard loud and clear from council's non-direction at the last water discussion that we really, need to go back to the drawing board on how we can find ways to value engineer a new water treatment plants and modify our goals that we came up with through that water treatment plant alternatives analysis. We had certain goals and values that we identified, and I think those are going to need to get modified and be a little more realistic for Minturn's needs. So we're doing that now, and I hope to have Jared Limke with HDR come back late summer with a 30% design drawing and some estimates for a revised water treatment plant. Lastly, I just want to say I had an internal update with council that I want to bring forward here publicly. There is a Senate Bill 24-174. This is a Senate bill that is supportive of local housing and local oversight of local housing. So we all saw at last year's legislative session that, you know, state mandates were coming down on how local jurisdictions should be handling housing needs. And as Minturn is a home rule municipality, it is important that Minturn oversee Minturn's housing. So Senate Bill 24-174 is a bill that identifies the need to have housing action plans in place. And then every 6 years, you update that plan with how you're addressing your housing needs. I've requested support from this council to be able to support this Senate bill, both through testimony and a written letter, as it would ensure that Minturn would stay in control of Minturn's housing. The requirements of this bill, Minturn is already actively conducting through the regional housing action plan that we already signed on for through Eagle County, Avon, and the town of Vale that are leading that effort financially. I'm representing Minturn in those discussions, and the planning team has been, Madison with the planning team has been helping me fill out all of the paperwork involved. Thank you, Madison. So I do request the ability to support this legislation that would help keep local housing a local issue. If anyone has any issues with me supporting that, just let me know.
Full direction, is that good?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
It's still, we still have some chances to get really affordable, real affordable housing, so. And I appreciate Michelle's work on that. I'd like that, there are a lot of locals that rent in town. And they've been renting forever and they can't afford, they really want to live in town and own their own place. And those kind of efforts, I'd really hate to bear for. Do we have a duck in here?
That's what he's a ringer. That's pretty funny.
Sorry.
So anyway, on to the next. Anything else from Michelle? Any questions? Next, we have.
Mr. Mayor, Scott Hunt is with us this evening, and he was specifically hoping to provide an update on the Minturn Forward project.
That's the next one.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, good evening. So in your packet is an update. Michelle had asked me to provide this, and I'm glad she did because it's been a while since I've been in front of council and spoken to you about the Minturn Forward Chapter 16 Code Update project. As you may recall, last year about this time, we were gearing up to start this project. And we had anticipated really starting in May and June. That got a little bit pushed back just due to our work on some other current planning projects, PUDs that were coming through. So this project really ramped up in the fall. In the update memo, I kind of outline what we did in the fall, what we've done in January, February, and where we are now. So as a reminder, the goal of this project is to provide a comprehensive update to Chapter 16, our zoning code, and Chapter 17, our subdivision code. Together, we call that our land use regulations. Super important for meeting the goals that have been established in the recently adopted 2023 community plan. So very new policy document that had lots of recommendations on updating the code and doing different things through that main tool that we have towards sustainability, affordable housing, getting the right zone districts, consolidating zone districts, a number of things. So very important project. We started with some stakeholder outreach, and we specifically invited local architects, people that have been using the town's Chapter 16 zoning code, going through the DRB process, actual practitioners, some landowners, some real estate agents, reaching out to those folks, having one-on-one or sometimes meeting with 2 people at once or 3 people at once, asking them a series of questions about, the code as it is now, how usable it is, what needs to change. Got some great feedback from those folks. I think the overarching theme was it needs to be easier to use. The definitions and interpretations and how someone does anything from calculating building height to understanding how to make it through a process for a land use update. Those all became really clear. And that was a good signal for us that, the intent of this project is in line with what we're hearing from the people that are actually out there using it. From there, we internally, working with Matt Fair from Western Slope Consulting, completed a code assessment. So taking the input from the stakeholders, then looking at it ourselves, having Matt as kind of an outside perspective, someone who deals with codes in other communities, provide a code assessment that just, again, added validity to the fact that we kind of know what's wrong with it, but also giving us some suggestions on things that he was seeing and some good recommendations moving forward. He even provided a draft outline of how that new code might be organized from a table of contents standpoint and kind of consolidating things, making things easier to find. So that was through December of last year. In January and February, based on some of the discussion and recommendations in the code assessment, we took some time to educate ourselves on the difference between a form-based code, a hybrid code, and a traditional code. Minturns code right now is considered a traditional Euclidean zoning code. So you have zone districts, you have allowed uses, you have kind of standard setbacks and lot coverages and all these things. A form-based code focuses more on the physical form of buildings as they relate to the pedestrian realm or how they relate from a scale perspective. So it has much more to do with design and aesthetics and the layout of things. And then allowed uses and other things come secondary to that. A hybrid code, as you might expect, kind of combines those two things. And we already have elements of graphics and things like that in our code. I think the overarching direction from Planning Commission and from the stakeholders was beef up your graphics, beef up your explanations, and be really clear on your intent of if you're regulating height or if you're regulating setbacks or bulk or mass, tell the reader why and give them good examples, graphics to be able to do that more easily. So it's the end result in our built environment and our uses out in our neighborhoods is more predictable. So those two things that took up several months, I think were really valuable because now we have direction on the type of code, the style. I believe the Planning Commission is recommending that we stick mostly with our traditional layout, but add more graphics, more and better descriptions. So we've got a good direction moving forward. And now we're getting to the fun part. We have spent March putting out a survey to the entire community. I think we have almost 92 responses, which is great. We also have hosted 2 open houses. Last week we had 2. Tomorrow night we have our last open house. And we've tried to divide those open houses into different neighborhoods so people can come in and think about that neighborhood as it exists today. What do they like about it? What might they want to see changed? And thinking about the code itself and the community plan, which has a future land use map. So again, part of the project is to hopefully combine, consolidate, and maybe rework some of our zone districts in line with the 2023 community plan, which has a future land use map that laid out some potential zone districts and uses. Most of which really won't change. I don't think most of our neighborhoods in our existing zoning. But that was the point of the survey and the open houses was to just get some initial feedback before we start the actual tinkering with the code. And that will happen April through May. So Matt and I are going to be meeting tomorrow. We're going to start going through some sections of code and discussing some changes to those, our administrative processes, our submittal requirements. Some low-hanging fruit is our sign code, just making sure that our sign code complies with recent federal cases and we're compliant with the law. So that's basically it. It got off to a slow start, but we're rolling now. So happy to take any questions.
Okay. I have a quick question up front while I'm thinking about it. So as far as the type of code setup, so what Planning Commission is recommending is the standard code, but with more illustrations and graphics. Now, is that the hybrid? I'm not clear on what form-based
Yeah.
versus drawings and those kind of things.
Form-based really is focused on less regulation on the actual uses in a different zone district. Zone districts were set up to segregate uses, residential versus industrial. Form-based takes the approach of, you know, the community is more interested in design and character. So the degree to whether a code is hybrid or not, or it's leaning more towards form-based or more towards traditional. What we have now is more or less traditional. I think the direction that staff has received from Planning Commission, or at least the request and recommendation, is that we stick with that for the most part, but integrate better graphics that illustrate some of the forms and character elements that we're after, but not a full-blown design, set of design standards baked into a land use code, because we already have design standards.
So then, so their recommendation is to do the hybrid?
Traditional with hybrid leanings. Hybrid light. Yeah,
I just want to get a better idea from council's point of view to understand form-based. You say it deals more with character.
literally it deals with, it's almost like a set of design standards or design guidelines, kind of like what we what we got out of the 100 block
Mhm.
design standards. That's leaning towards a form-based code mixed in with some traditional stuff. Lots of illustrations and photos and renderings of the type of buildings, form, massing, relationship with the pedestrian area, whether it's a sidewalk or a street frontage. Those types of things are kind of baked into a form-based code. And then the regulation of uses,
Mhm.
residential versus commercial or mixed use or whatever, becomes kind of secondary.
I guess I'll need to learn more about
It's kind of mind-boggling.
that.
And
Yeah, but I'd like to understand that better.
Yeah,
Anything in our county strictly form-based?
not that I know of.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sounds kind of creative and interesting.
yeah, it is. It's used more often in urban environments. And it also is used often with large scale redevelopments. So if an area is, slated for redevelopment for whatever reason, and the community or the city is trying to achieve something specific with regard to kind of placemaking and, remaking the feel of the place, they lean more heavily on form-based codes to illustrate and to inform developers of, this is what we're trying to create. This is how many stories, this is how many stories on this block, and this is the character of these row homes over here, whatever it is. That gets illustrated and described in the form-based code. And that allows developers more predictability as to what the city or a town is actually after from that perspective.
Yeah, it seems like that's the feedback we've gotten from developers, especially the 100 block, where they were like, what the heck do you guys want?
Yeah.
And so I think that, just on face value, it sounds like a hybrid is the way to go, because we probably, but again, this council will learn more about it.
Yeah.
And I will learn more about it on the other side of the fence, but thanks.
Yeah. The other way to look at this is, what we have now is a traditional code, and we have design standards or design guidelines. And the 100 block took it a step further, and maybe it's appropriate for the 100 block. You could go with a traditional or a hybrid, and then spend some time with the design standards and beef those up, because we kind of beef those up for the 100 block. Other areas of town, if that's of interest and concern, is to take another stab at those design standards that would apply to other neighborhoods.
Well, I think after new council is seated, maybe we could schedule a joint session, planning commission, so we can go through that kind of stuff. So we can understand your recommendation as well better. Any other questions?
I just want to say thanks. I attended last week's and I thought it was great. The only thing I just noticed was on the future map, it pretty much showed the 100 block as being mixed use, and we just went through that all last year to kind of change the 100 block to straight commercial, and I didn't know what the process of that's gonna be. If we're stuck on the 100 block of being commercial, or if it's gonna change.
I think the upper levels are resident,
What's that, Terry?
right, upper levels are residential.
Yeah, I knew we talked about that, but the map had actually showed it as being mixed use, kind of like the 200 block, the 300 block. It didn't show it specifically as commercial.
Gusty, that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought it up. You know, we're still at the stage where we're talking about colors on a map and not a lot of definition of what a mixed use zone district. If we arrive at a mixed use 1, 2, and 3, those were the concepts that came out of the community plan, with mixed use 1 being more intense mix of commercial and residential uses, probably more akin to the 100 block. And mixed use 3 being residential neighborhoods with some allowance for neighborhood appropriate commercial uses. You could still have a mixed use 1 designation in the 100 block and retain all those commercial uses and retain this similar or same intent that you just went through, which is to prioritize commercial development, ground level or street level commercial as a requirement. All those things could remain the same.
Okay.
It would just have a different name.
Different name.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks.
Sure. Thanks for attending.
Right.
Lynn, thanks for attending ours too.
I think the idea, the hybrid idea is really good. And fairly relaxed approach to it, but giving people examples. So they know the town's intent is.
Yeah, I was interested to see that too, that I didn't know that those two admittedly don't go to planning meetings because there's a lot going on with council, so I need to stay up, is one takeaway, stay up to date more. I guess like in general, what, you know, we always just stare at the picture in the back of the room here, and you see you need, I think a lot of Minturn that makes Minturn sprung up because of lack of building codes and design guidelines and things like that. And so the
Yeah.
more you try to like define that and layer it within like height restrictions and block coverages and all this stuff, like we're not a built urban environment. We're not worried about like runoff situations at the scale that a Phoenix is or something, right? So like when we're looking at heights, roof lines, all this kind of stuff, like the more you try to define that, the more you definitely don't end up with that. You end up with the opposite of that. And I guess I would, like, the takeaway is, you know, look at what's come through and what's been proposed over the last 3 to 5 years, and has any of that really matched up with the community plan? Like, is Minturn North isn't that, like, so knowing what we know and knowing what we've seen come through and knowing those conversations with developers and people who are, you know, looking to bring PUDs and things like that, all the way down to lot owners, like what sorts of things would encourage them to get creative, you know? And like it'd be tough to show them a drawing because you'd have to have, maybe we just put that in the freaking code. You know, like how do we encourage people to be creative with use and bring ideas that, you know, not to sit here and worry like, well, their code isn't going to allow this roof line or this crazy idea I had or whatever, it might not fit in current mountain environment. Because then at the end of the day, you're going to end up with, you know, 100 buildings that look the same because they're trying to design to some guideline that they think they can fit it in, and it's a really safe project, and it's going to be gray and it's going to sell and it's going to fit within their lot coverage guidelines. So there's no right answer. I think I was really intrigued by the floor based and some sort of, you know, kind of split things where you could just have like a lookbook of architecture that people gave a thumbs up of makes Minturn, and let people kind of jog their creative juices and get architects' wheels spinning.
Right.
But I think that would be my direction, is try to get this stuff to bring more projects that look like that.
That's a great point, Brian. And that's certainly conversations that we've had at the planning commission level. You know, I don't feel that we've got a sense at the planning commission level or on staff to go towards an overly prescriptive set of design guidelines. You know, again, the town has design guidelines right now. And we do reference them when we review DRB submittals, and we pull out elements of that document and say, maybe you should think about using more wood or stone or things. They're all pretty general. And that has, in a lot of cases, led to some flexibility and creativity. But I think we've also had conversations about, as we do this, how do we encourage more of that? Let people have a little more creativity, be more specific perhaps in the intent of, here's what we're trying to create. Now you go figure it out. Here's your bookends, right? So that's a great comment. Something we can take forward. Good job, Scott. And Matt.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I had one more thing I wanted to mention to the council. If everyone is finished with the midterm forward discussion. Oh, yes, Kate.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you have any comment or questions for Scott?
No, I don't really. I think to Brian's point, like, I'm not sure that our code is restricting people. I think that nobody's rolling into Minturn going like, I want a weird purple house. They're all like metal and wood and beige. And I don't know that like our code is restricting that or encouraging something else. Either way, I think people want what they want when they build a home, and I'm not sure how you convince them to build something more Minturn than not.
And I was looking at the Winter Black Design Guidelines, and they had like 5 important guidelines, and I don't have them in front of me right now, but to me, if we made those a finding for approving a project, Scott, you probably know what I'm talking about, but it was like, Minturn is a mountain town. It's got to fit into our natural environment properly. It's got to fit into our character properly. It's got to do all these different kind of things, and just know that those are the guidelines. And when planning commission is sending a recommendation, they have to make a finding that all the 5 of those points is being met by the project. And to me, if we have to check that list off there on every project, then we let them do what they want to, as long as it fits those 5 guidelines. I think we'll end up with a pretty good project.
It's a great idea.
Anything, nothing else for Scott?
Is there a hand raised on the thing?
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just 2 things. I was in a meeting with CDOT today for the phase 2 sidewalk project. Just so you all know, they said that we can bring our lane widths down from 12 feet driving lanes to 11-foot width driving lanes. And they asked, you know, if Minturn would support that. I immediately said yes. This means people need to start slowing down, because this means if you're going too fast, you'll hit someone's, side view mirror and things like that. So the concept of narrower driving lanes is to get people to slow down. So we will have wider parking lanes and narrower driving lanes in this section of road. So just an update for you all. The second thing is, a couple months ago, council gave direction for me to take the 4 intersections identified in the Minturn community plan that recommended sidewalk extension bulb outs, and make them get designs for permanent bulb outs, since CDOT would not support our temporary bulb out request. So I've been working with Jeff Spinell at Intermountain Engineering to do that. And Jeff sent me this picture from a town that I will not name yesterday, saying what they have run across with our bulb out designs is that in order for this not to happen, we will need to move our stormwater drainage inlets to address the bulb outs. This greatly increases the price of the project. So I've asked Jeff to design 1 bulb out intersection and get an estimate for that to understand what price point we're talking. So, you know, of course, we don't want to go and make a situation worse by trying to increase safety. So I was appreciative of Jeff's, you know, knowledge in this field and understanding of all of the intricacies that go into this. So this is what we're trying to avoid. Jeff's getting some prices now, and hopefully in the coming month or so, we'll have a better idea of what we're up against cost wise. So I forgot to mention that.
Thank you.
What is the point that the water comes down and then can't get to the storm drains because of the bulb outs, or like what causes that?
Right, with the bulb out impeding the direction of the stormwater drainage flow without moving the drain inlet, this occurs. And so in Minturn's case, the proximity and location of our current inlets would need to be moved in order to accommodate proper drainage with a bulb out. And that becomes a much more expensive project. Yeah, so we're trying to avoid.
Bulb out with like spate, like a drain channel built in, so it's not diverting the flow.
I can certainly ask him. I mean, anything's, well, I shouldn't say anything's possible when you're working with an engineer, but it's worth asking. So I'm happy to ask that.
Yeah, that's
And sorry, I forgot to bring those two things up.
way of order of family drainage here and there without
Yeah.
adding to it, that's for sure. Okay, if there's no further comment for Scott, we have no such presentation, so we'll move on to resolution 13, series 2024. Appointing planning commission members.
You want to sell?
Get out of here. Okay, so the way we usually do this is we'll ask you we'll have a question and answer session. Y'all been, you have too, for that matter. All three of y'all have been there. I don't know, do we have anybody zooming in?
We do, Jay, is Tracy online?
I do not see her online yet, no.
I didn't anticipate that she would, she said she might or might not make it tonight.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll rotate who goes first with each question and answer session. And we'll have, so if council has some questions to ask, we'll go down the line and do so. So going left to right, Darryl, why don't you go first this time?
Okay. Daryl Wiegert, 1718 Main Street, way at the south end of town.
Could you give us just a brief description of why you want to be there and past history of this for Minturn?
Living down at the south end of town, you don't get as much interaction with people, so you kind of get out of the town, the flow of town, even though, you know, kind of look at the different packets and what have you. You get an idea, but you're not so much involved in the town. I used to be quite involved in the town, and I kind of miss that a little bit, like to get back into being involved. I think there's a lot to be said to be part of this town.
Gus, do you want to start with any questions you have?
I could just ask a generic one. What do you feel that you bring to the planning and zoning commission?
Well, the learning curve is going to be pretty short, for one thing. Very knowledgeable of the history of the town and the workings of the town, and the character, the feeling, all the different things that we've been working through, zonings and everything like that. So yes, I think I can bring a little bit of that, a lot of the history stuff, a lot of the what if, and then definitely an older person's view.
Thanks. Thank you, Daryl. And we'll go to Jeff next.
Jeff Armstead, 1632 Main Street. I'm in Daryl's neighborhood. I've been on the planning and zoning board for a couple terms. I've been in town for 25 plus years. And I guess to Scott's point, we've been working on that. Chapter 16 is why I got on there in the first place. And now that you said we're getting into the fun stuff, I don't know if I'd call it fun, but we are getting into the nuts and bolts of it. And so that's why I'm kind of hoping to finish what I started. I think it's important to, like you were talking earlier about the form-based versus the hybrid versus this or that. I think it's just important that we don't get into a code, or we don't end up with a code that's gray, that's pretty black and white. And I don't mean that from a prescriptive standpoint, telling people what they should or shouldn't do, but I think it's really just our code has so long been very difficult to understand what the intentions are. And I think that that's been our goal, is to make sure that people understand what the intention of the code is, and then give them the creativity, to Brian's point, to do what, make something that is Minturn versus the form-based code saying everything should look homogeneous and be gray or beige or the same, so that's my 2 cents.
Jesse, you want to re-ask your question?
You kind of answered it, but what do you feel that you bring that benefit the planning commission?
Just the history of being in town for 25 years and being a builder and a developer myself. I've worked with the code a lot over the years. And I know it is difficult to work with. So I think just making sure that moving forward, we're going to end up with something that is really, that we're proud of, that can last, and that we don't have to go revisit in 5 years. I hope that it's going to stick for a long time and really preserve the character of the town. Really, that's what's most important, I think, is to preserve what we have.
Thank you, Jeff. Mike?
Michael Boyd. Currently on the planning commission. I think as far as what do I bring to the planning commission is, I think it's an important job. I intensively read my packet. I read it again. Everybody that's on commission with me, you never seen so many Post-its, and and the one thing one of the most important things that I've learned being on planning commission, and even being knowledgeable in building and a lot of stuff. The most important thing I think that I learned is learning to listen. Just learning to listen to what everybody says, because other people do have different perspectives, and it's something that actually surprised me that I actually learned. My wife would probably prefer that I learn it at home, but one thing at a time. But and then then what else do I bring? Your bulb outs, Brian. You could cantilever them so you don't have to move the drainage and keep them up off the ground. But the problem, the only issue you have to figure out from there is how you're going to keep it clear in the winter.
Hang on. Jesse,
Well, he kind of answered it, but
okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Is Tracy there? Jay?
Sorry, no, she is not.
Okay, we'll continue on. So we'll go backwards this time, and Mike, why don't you go first? And Brian, your question, or if you have any?
Yeah, how can the planning commission help us achieve our community plan goals around full-time residents living here and kind of keeping a sense of community that kind of makes Minturn.
I think that I think that Minturn is Minturn because of the people, because the people of Minturn. As far as what can the planning commission do, I think that we're currently going through the process of the rewrite and taking it all in, and it's not a fast one thing that you can do process. It's a learning experience. Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
Jeff?
Can you repeat that? It was.
Same question?
Yeah, same question, everybody, yeah.
I think, the zoning that we're going through and the outreach that we're doing in the neighborhoods, I think it's important to listen to the residents, to hear, especially from people that have been here a long time, but obviously, as you guys know, creating opportunities for affordable housing is tough. So I liked what you said earlier about, trying to think outside the box a little bit in terms of, I guess, making sure that the new codes and the new revisiting of the zones of every zone district in town, we're doing this now. So I know that there are a lot of stakeholders in town that are intently waiting to see what happens to their neighborhood, whether it's from a change of zoning, whether that means it's allowing commercial use where there didn't used to be, or mixed use where there didn't used to be, or opportunities for ADUs, or I think we have a unique opportunity to, we don't have a lot of room in town for redevelopment. So some of the bigger projects that have come through, I think we may have missed the boat on creating some affordable housing. And I think our opportunities are diminishing. So the smarter we can be about our chapter 16 and 17 zoning, it's going to set the tone for the rest of the next 15, 20 years. And then I think we're going to be out of land. So I think that's where the challenge is to create affordable housing.
Daryl?
Yeah, I think the best way I can think of answering is with the surveys that is going on, with the open houses going on. You're getting to know the people, you're getting to know the neighborhoods a lot more. And that's the feedback that you need as to what they would like the town to be doing. It's kind of like there's people that live here year round, they're pretty much get involved in the town. The second homeowners, they're more interested in the town and involved in the town, I guess you could say. But you got to take that into a little bit of grain of salt, I guess you could say. You want to have folks saying what their neighborhood is, what they want to see in it. I kind of look at it as like a breakfast between involvement and commitment. The chickens are committed, the pig's involved. So, that, or the other way around, I guess you could say it. The chickens are involved and the pig's really committed. But that's what I think you need to get the people that are in those neighborhoods and committed to what they're doing.
Still no Tracy, Jay? Jay?
I'm sorry.
Tracy, is she still offline?
No one, she is not attended.
Okay. Okay, Jeff, you'll be next.
This is a little bit in left field. But I'm assuming the settlement with Battle Mountain goes through, Minturn is going to end up with 240 acres. Do you have any thoughts about what should be done with that acreage?
You talking down to Tigawon?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I have thoughts. I think the meeting that Tim attended, that I watched, there was a considerable amount of fill dirt that he was going to put on that property. It sounded like. And so by the time they got done, it did seem like there was potential development that we could do down there. I know there's been talk about selling the property and using the money for other capital improvement projects maybe in town. I don't have any real strong opinions about what we should do with it, but I think I guess my biggest question is, part of me feels like, is it valuable or is it not valuable? And I think schools, in my head, it's still out on how valuable the property really is. So I'm not saying it's super valuable or zero value. I just really don't know yet. And I don't know how soon we're gonna know. So I guess that's my answer.
Keeping everybody guessing here.
You know, what Jeff stated, watching the meetings and reading the packets. I read your packets as well, by the way. But, you know, it's definitely gonna be a long process, because I think I asked this at a commission meeting, you know, as far as, you know, the backfill process on a big portion of the property. I'm not quite sure we've gotten to the final timeline on a lot of that stuff. I think that, to my understanding, you guys are still working on some of that, I think. And as far as, you know, I think that everybody's allowed to have different opinions, but I think that if there's property that's valuable that we could potentially sell, I think that we should sell it and put some money back in the town coffers so we can use it where we need it.
Thank you, Mike.
Knowing what we went through back in roughly about 84, 86 with the original Halens pond and all the backfill that they had to do and all the different layers that they had to put into that, as well as most of that is what's going to happen with this Tigwan area as well. That took a lot of time. So this isn't going to be a fast thing by no means, but the idea of what we would like to do with it, like if we wanted to sell it or something like that, it'd be nice, but I'd like to see us put some restrictions on the selling of it. So it's not just a blank check there saying, yeah, you could build multi-dollar homes there, or just strictly a certain type of home. That's not Minturn. It's going to be part of Minturn, so we got to keep it looking the rest of Minturn.
Daryl, stay up there.
Oh.
Eric?
An easy one for you. What do you feel, or how do you feel what would be your vision of Minturn going forward? What's important for you?
In the future here?
Yeah.
I look back over the situation of how Minturn has gone in the last, say, 30 years. We had at that point, we consider ourselves young and energetic and really pushing a lot of stuff and pushing the envelope a bit. And it was fun, and things did change. And then we all got old and left, started leaving. And it got, so Minturn looked like it was starting to dry up a little bit. Everyone was selling, moving out of town, going to Grand Junction, New Mexico, what have you. I'm excited. I'm seeing a lot more strollers, a lot more younger folks. That is the life of the Minturn now. That's what we're heading towards in the future, is this younger group. It's exciting to see what's happening back with Blue Corner. Like what you said, it would be nice to say that Minturn Citizens has first call on that, to be able to use Minturn Corner. Things like that to help the younger group in town. There could be many different ways of doing that. That's going to be the strength of Minturn in the future, not us old people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, what's your vision of Minturn for the future? What would you like to see?
Tough question. Minturn, when I've been here 30 some years, and when I moved to Minturn, the Vale Daily, the big article on the front page, Minturn was popular because Minturn was Minturn. We didn't have, tons of regulations and, we were a town of the people, I love the residents. I think that, full-time residency is definitely beneficial to our town. I think that I used to joke 5 years ago that, in 25 years, what I liked the most about Minturn was that we actually got a sign. I liked our sign, and now we have stuff that's coming forward. Minturn North, we have other stuff that's coming forward, the school district. I think that, there's a lot of good things, that are gonna help move forward. But as far as, big changes overall to the town, I think that with the developments in the school district, stuff that's gonna be built, we're gonna add, a lot of people in town, which is gonna generate more tax revenue and put a demand in for, more commercial spaces. And what I said before about listening, I think Daryl had a good point on the restrictions. If you want to have some housing requirements or whatever on the land, if we sell it, it's a good idea, Daryl.
Yeah.
Same question?
Yeah.
I think three things. The work that the mayor's been doing on the transit authority, I think having more public transit. To Brian's point, e-bikes, seeing e-bikes coming into town, we have 2 e-bikes and so more affordable transit or free transit would be great. I love taking the free bus in Vail. To Daryl's point, seeing younger families, permanent families. I want to see more permanent families in town. I want to see more options for people to be full-time residents. I don't particularly want to see a ton of second homeowners. I think that's what sucks the character out of the town. And we're on the border of it, I think, right now. And then my third one was the commercial component, just more trying to make more opportunities for businesses to succeed in town, whether it's downtown or south town. South Minturn used to be a really vibrant commercial part of town where the trading post is. And I think there's opportunities on that end of town too, without sucking business out of downtown. I know there's kind of two sides of the coin or the two opinions on it, whether you put businesses down there and it pulls business away from downtown. But I think the more commercial opportunities we have all through town, the better. So.
Mike, you go first this time. My first question is, what do you use as your source of guidance when making a decision that'll affect the town?
My main source of guidance is, as I've explained before, as commission, is the people that I talk to. I think that all planning commissioners come from different parts of town, and that, they get input from the citizens that they talk to. I have come to the community meetings, some, the first one was a little quiet, the second was better. And, I plan on coming to the one tomorrow night as well, because I like to actually hear from, the citizens and the people that live here.
Okay. Let's see, who's next? Let's do Daryl again.
What was it again?
Yeah, so what do you use as your source for guidance when making your decisions that affect the town?
People I meet and talk to. Not only that, I take the information from them and then I evaluate what are the existing rules, what are the existing standards that we have to work with, the guidelines that we have to work with. And then I try and go back to the individuals and say, do you realize these ideas? Is there anything that we're missing? And then make a meld it all together and kind of go, okay, this is the way it has to be.
Good.
I think just to everybody's point, your neighbors, looking your neighbors in the eye, knowing everybody as long as I've lived here and making decisions that are going to be, that you're going to be able to look your neighbors in the eye at the saloon or Kirby's or at the concerts, and just knowing that you made the right decision for the town, with the history of the town in mind and the character of the town in mind. And I guess my faith is always in there too, just that's it.
Yeah. Actually, Jeff, why don't you stay there?
Okay.
Jeff, so you got any more questions?
I don't have any. I have one for staff. With Tracy being on the Historical Preservation Committee, does she have to give one up or can she do them both?
That is at the council discretion. So I took a look at we have no guidelines in place identifying the inability of someone to be on multiple commissions or boards. It's for the council to consider if offering a seat to someone else would provide more of an opportunity for others to have their voice at a leadership level.
Okay, I knew the Historical Preservation Committee was pretty new and I didn't think we really had anything, but I just wanted to double
Yeah,
check.
so there's nothing in place right now. So she was told that, yes, she can, apply for this and that the council can then decide if they want to consider her for that seat. And if such, if the council, wants to request, that she potentially step down from a different seat so as to give someone else a voice at the leadership level in other seats, that's an option to consider.
Okay, thank you. That was all I had.
Okay, Ryan, you got anything?
Kate.
I got it. Nolan.
Kate.
Online.
Kate?
Yeah, I guess my question is probably similar to everybody's, but reframed, like I'd just be interested in how everybody sees the planning commission's role for our town as a body at large.
Well, I mean, because we're a recommending board and we don't really get to make the decisions, we hopefully do the meat grinding and we grind it out and make recommendations to you guys that you can understand, I guess, what we looked at and why that's important. I think efficiency is part of, or the lack of efficiency is what a bad code gives us, right? So if we're interpreting land use applications with codes that are really gray, there's going to be a lot of time spent. And I only know this from experience, but there's a lot of time spent from staff level, from the other side of the equation as a builder, a developer, a homeowner wants to do something. And if there's a lot of time spent back and forth, architects, fees, engineers, if all that time is wasted, where you could get to the end of the rainbow or get to the train station quicker with really good intentions and really clear goals, then I think that's where our job is to first make sure that our code is easy to use and easy to understand, and then we can do our job quicker, and then you guys can do your job quicker, and we're getting more done, I guess, at the end of the day.
I'll give you one more.
The other two applicants need to answer.
Daryl?
I'm hidden behind that. Oh, it's hard to see my feet up there. I take it from a little bit different angle. Being mayor, being council member for many, many years, I know what I was expecting from our committees and our planning and zoning. I knew what I could not do and what I know they could do if they could just interpret stuff for us. That would be the direction I would be working towards. Going what I feel that you guys definitely need information on, the interpretation of what the different codes, the different laws, rules, whatever we're working with. That would be the direction that I would be going with.
Mike?
As Jeff said, basically we're a recommending board. I think that, as I stated earlier, we all come from different parts of town. We all are associated with different groups of people. I think that as a board, we go through the process, we take what we know, and we listen, and we have to everyone's different perspectives, and we come to a happy, probably gonna pronounce this word wrong, consortium, something like that. And we consult, with each other and with staff. We come up with our ideas, we give it to you, and you, as our bosses, it's your job to bring it home or change it.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, if there's no other questions, I got one more I want to give out. Daryl, you're first. I want to understand your perspective about growth in Minturn, keeping in mind that, now we're in a position where it seems like the only people that can afford to buy a house in Minturn has got to have a lot of wealth with them. And also the fact that because of that, growth is maybe a source of avoiding that. But I'd like to hear your perspective.
How to avoid,
How do you feel about growth in Minturn? When should, how much we should grow?
okay. I would like to see the growth of Minturn more gearing towards the people that support the communities around here, such as the maintenance people, so the bartenders, the waitresses, all of those folks that are trying to live here, but they can't because it's way too expensive. Minturn used to be the place where everyone did come that was the working class for Vale and Avon and Beaver Creek. We were the backbone for those areas. We did too good of a job. Now people want to get over here. So now we need to kind of step back a little bit and see if there's ways that we can create a little bit more affordable housing, cut it down a little bit, maybe tiny homes, maybe there's other avenues that we could explore. I know being involved in some other boards that there is some other avenues that we can try and work with, other groups that we can work with to try and get that going. Now, our hands are tied a little bit because of the space that we have here in Minturn. We got BLM on one side and we got the National Forest on the other, so we can't expand a whole lot. So we got to figure out how to do that.
Jeff?
Yeah, I just to keep going on that, it's tough. But I think that the more that we can try to keep open minds and think out of the box, I think that growth is important for our town. I don't think that we can support our staff I don't think we can support a lot of our services if we don't have some growth. But it has to be smart. And I think that we've all been here long enough that we know that we can do the right thing. It's really difficult to put your finger on it, though. There, like Daryl said, there's not a lot of places for redevelopment. And there are some big projects on, anchoring both ends of town that potentially could be something. And if Dow Junction ever becomes something that could anchor that end of town, and Tigawan could anchor the other end of town with Tim's project. But I just think it's really important for us to try to find opportunities for full-time residents. However we can do that. And I just think it's really important.
Like these guys have stated, basically we don't have a lot of space. I think that we currently have growth that's gonna nothing is super fast, we have growth that's happening here, we have growth that's happening down there. We're totally restricted in space, and keeping Minturn the way it is, and with the growth that we have, and we're going to get more traffic from the growth. We're going to get more traffic just from construction workers, from growth that's coming. But in a perfect world, if the opportunity arose, I'd love to see a transit hub and affordable housing and something that generates really good tax revenue. But it Meadow Mountain for the town of Minturn, and I didn't even think about it. And Jeff pointed out potentially, that could be, if we have something to sell the other end of town, that could be something that you can mull over as to who might want it and how that's going to benefit, the housing that people are looking for, as well as tax revenue. That's super important.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, I think we're done. So we'll proceed with the vote.
If everyone will please note that the ballots are labeled with your name on them. So these are ballots that are kept for Open Records Act. And so we ask you please fill out the ballot that has your name attached to it.
Do you have a way for Kate to vote?
So Kate will be texting me her votes, which then make the texts records. But those will be, I will be filling out Kate's ballot for her.
Making sure.
Must pass these back down, or you?
Yes, after you voted on 3.
And just so I know, while there's 2 appointees for the board, there's also an alternate position as well. That was brought up before.
With the top two votes, tied are Michael and Jeff. And then Daryl has one less vote.
Okay. So that would mean Mike and Jeff are renew their appointments to the Board of Planning and Zoning, and Daryl, if you hopefully will accept the alternate position. Sure. Good. Good.
And, Mr. Mayor, I have the, certificates for everybody to sign and for you to swear them in, the language for you to swear.
Okay, sounds good.
Is that right? Oh, they just.
There's one for each person. There you should be.
This is Michael, Daryl. There's Jeff, Michael, and Daryl. Sorry about that.
All right. Let's get it all in one now. You'll be all the same. Oh. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I,
Michael Boyd.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution.
that I will support the Constitution,
And the laws of the United States.
the laws of the United States,
The Constitution.
Constitution,
And the laws of the state of Colorado.
and laws of the state of Colorado,
And the ordinances of the town of Minturn.
and the ordinances of the town of Minturn,
That I will faithfully perform.
that I will faithfully
All the duties of the office of the Minturn Planning Commission member.
all duties of the office of the Minturn Planning Commission member,
Upon which you are about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Hope I give you two of them. I think that's me. Yeah, that's you. Daryl. Just sign it and give it back. Right.
do we sign it?
Thank you all for being publicly minded and.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. See you next week. Thank you. You said something.
I'll need you to sign all these certificates. Yep.
Hey,
I agree with that part.
Right.
I didn't print out my agenda.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, you still need to do the resolution.
Thank you. Okay, that is. Resolution number 13. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Resolution 13, series 2024, appointing the planning commission members.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
So motion by Eric, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is ordinance number 2, series 2024, second reading, a no ordinance for the South Minturn addition subdivision from commercial to residential. Something like that.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know of any changes that have been made to that ordinance since the first reading.
Okay. Do we have any further questions or concerns? From the board?
Oh,
Okay, we'll open up for public hearing. So anyone in the audience? Has any questions or concerns about the ordinance number 2? Anybody online?
No, sir. Nobody's in attendance.
Okay. All right, so with that, I'll close the public hearing. And I'll entertain a motion for second reading.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2, series 2024, an ordinance of the town of Minturn rezoning lot 3A South Minturn addition subdivision from Southtown Character Area Commercial Zone District to Southtown Character Area Residential Zone District.
I'll do.
Motion by Gusty, second by Terry. Roll call, please.
Gusty, I.
Brian, I.
Eric, I.
Terry.
Earl, I.
Gate I.
Okay, I. Ordinance number 2 is now in. Congratulations, Woody.
Thank you, guys.
Lynn, you can come back.
What's that?
Maybe you're up.
Okay, next item on the agenda is ordinance number 3, series 2023, an ordinance disconnecting Rex Flats, Gilman, and Roster Pile 5 from the town of Minturn.
I guess I'll take this one. Mike Sawyer, town attorney, had provided a memo with regard to this disconnection application and the ordinance. Mike does a great job of just outlining that pursuant to the settlement agreement, the applicant has submitted a complete application for disconnection of Gilman and Roster Pile 5. Staff has reviewed that, and that's why there's an ordinance in front of you. So.
Okay. Any questions from Scott? Any from Richard?
I just question,
Mhm.
has Minturn heard from the county at all about the disconnection?
The county was provided notice in accordance with the annexation and disconnection statute, and as I have not heard of any communication from them, but I don't know if staff has either.
And I have not received any communications from my office.
Nor have I.
Okay, no news is good news, I guess.
Tim McGuire, 164 Railroad Ave. We have received some communication from the county. They have reached out to us to have a meeting. We have not had that meeting yet, but they have reached out to us.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering what they'll do with it.
They can't do anything with it. It's still our property. I mean, they'll just have the oversight of it as the governing entity,
I'm sure they'll do as little as possible.
probably.
Should we all sing a song? No, no.
It's still on our boundary.
And,
It will still impact us.
see you later.
Yeah.
I will
So-
remind the council that we had a discussion about this matter a few months ago, where Mike Sawyer went over the intricacies of the disconnection, and Polly Jessen, environmental council, provided a memo identifying the value of disconnecting these 3 contaminated parcels.
Yeah, I was about to summarize that in case somebody's zooming in or watching it on online later. That these are disconnections and they'll be going to the county jurisdiction, because these are basically very polluted parcels, and the town does not want to get stuck with any overseeing commitments. So with that, I'll open this up to public hearing. Anybody out there, Jeff?
There's nobody in the audience.
Close public hearing. Any more questions from the board? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to for Gilman and Rex Flats and Roster Pile 5 to be kicked to the curb.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Terry, second by Gusty. Roll call, please.
Gusty, I.
Brian, I.
Ben,
Eric, I.
Harriet.
Earl, I.
Kate, I.
Thank
We'll-
you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Good luck, Tim.
It'll be off our shoulders.
Yeah. Ordinance number 4, series 2024, an ordinance amending chapter 19 of the Historic Preservation Code to allow the noticing of demolition prior to permitting. Oh, who is this? Madison, that's your deal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at the February 27th, 2024 Historic Preservation meeting, we had a member of the public who was a contractor and express some frustration with the way that the chapter 19 was currently written. And staff has been very aware that this is likely going to be a fluid document. We're still in, the relatively early stages of implementing chapter 19, given that it's only been a year and a half or 2 years since we've adopted historic preservation guidelines. And so I'll give you some background. So with the section of code that this person was referencing, section 19.9.10, that requires a complete application to be submitted in order to trigger this 2-week stay in which a sign is posted to the property and an e-blast goes out to the rest of the town saying, hey, something has been applied for, whether it be alteration, relocation, or demolition of a property that's over 75 years old and therefore could potentially be qualified to be nominated and then designated for historic preservation. And part of the complete application for a demolition permit is an asbestos report. It's disconnection from water, sewer, gas, electric, and it's also mitigation of any asbestos with a permit provided through the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And that's quite a bit of work to be done before you submit to the town, because we're kind of the last stop on the train of demolition. And to have no, guarantee that you can then go ahead and demolish your property and it could in fact be nominated and designated, that could cause quite a long period of time for that process to just occur. And during the summer, that might not be quite an issue, but during the winter, if water and sewer is disconnected, power is disconnected, you have no heat in the house, that means that pipes could freeze and potentially negatively impact the property. Should it be nominated and then designated because it's been sitting empty with no power for a few months while this process occurred. And even if it doesn't end up designated, it's still a 2-month process to go through and vet everything once a nomination has been submitted. And once we started looking through this more deeply, staff came up with, well, it would also probably be beneficial from a DRB perspective so that people don't have to spend money and time invested in an architect drawing up all these plans for any addition or outside renovation of their home, only to submit that DRB application and find out that their home is now being nominated and then designated and they can't make those proposed changes. And so in order to kind of address that comment, staff has drafted this ordinance addressing that and essentially providing a separate application that will allow you to apply, specifying what you're trying to do and kickstart that 2-week stay without having to provide all of the documentation that a complete application for demolition or DRB or anything else might require. And you can just kind of get that process started a little bit earlier and essentially help it become more efficient. So that was the intent when drafting this ordinance. I took this before HPC last night. They all recommended approval to the town council with one additional sentence added that staff approved the placement of the sign posting to make sure that it's visible and everybody knows what's going on so that people aren't necessarily trying to put signs behind bushes and make sure that everybody's aware when things are applied for. So that is the gist of this ordinance, and I can certainly take any questions.
Jesse?
I don't have any, thanks.
I would be in favor of it if we extend the approval period to like 365 days, because I think given the current status of contractors and our seasonality of being in the mountains, and there's a lot of variability that's in that whole process. And I think you just really never know what the construction timelines and weather and things can do. So I don't think that would be unreasonable to say that it would be okay to do it within 365 days. Whole year.
So I'm already, could you clarify that? 365 days for.
The way that it's written is like, so is it Preservation Society gives the town gives the under 19 to say, yes, we are not going to nominate this structure for historical preservation. While, you can go demolish it, or you can start the process of hiring your asbestos people and all the disconnects and all that, and hiring your contractor for all of that. Once you wouldn't really start that process or major pieces of it until you had that approval under chapter 19 from the town to start going ahead. I just think that the time frame then should be longer for somebody to do that. 180 days seems kind of short to get things moving and done.
So you can do it faster if you want.
If you want to do it faster, yeah, I think that'd be ideal,
You're
but
just talking on the outside.
I just think like there's a lot of stuff that goes that. It just seems like a short period, so I don't know what the downside of a year versus 180 days would be.
Okay, so maybe we can put that on as a discussion item if we want to go in further. I'm not sure if we can put this on in the same deal, can we?
Yeah, this is just first reading, so amendments can be made between first and second reading.
Okay.
If the
Wait,
council chooses.
so they could apply for the demolition and then they would have 365 days to actually do it.
The way that's written is 180 currently, I was saying.
No, and I know that, and I was just thinking like. The 365, I mean, the problem I've had is that. Is that buildings sit vacant in town or undone. In various stages. We want to discourage that, we want people to move on these kind of things, so if they're like, I mean, for example. A popular store in town is leaving. And that building will be empty. Maybe someone will buy it and want to demo it. It will be triggered, it's definitely gonna go in to, it's going to be nominated, I am sure. Then that's a pretty awesome spot right there. So if it's gonna be demoed, I'd rather it be demoed sooner or later. I mean, if it's not gonna, I would rather it not be demoed, but I would rather it not sit there for a year. I'd rather they do it. So it's just a devil's advocate way.
The way that I think of it is that it would encourage people to get it done faster, because you're not like worried about like timing and like trying to line up all these people and then waiting, and it just kind of eliminates some uncertainty for the person that wants to move on that.
But the only thing that it's for is to allow the Historic Preservation Commission and to make a determination whether or not the building is a landmark. And that's, it doesn't seem like a lot of agencies and stuff are involved. So maybe 180 days is reasonable.
But electric, sewer,
That's later,
gas,
that happens.
no, but that happens in that 180 days.
No,
That's, yes,
Oh,
that's the whole point. Is this,
okay.
that 180-day period is like the historical preservation crew says, all right, like this is your time period in order to go get everything else done needed on the property in order to do that.
I think when you're reconstructing something, it probably goes a lot quicker than if you're constructing. So as, for example, shutting off things as opposed to getting them put in. I think it would just be like a, I don't know. I mean, my husband is builder, like. He's got a condemned house that he needs to rip down, or he's done it. I don't know. I don't really pay attention, I honestly don't. But I'm pretty sure that when they had some houses to demo, that were. And it was, other than asbestos remedy, which actually, now that I think about it, that could be a 360.
There's a lot, you have to get, like, all the utilities were hard to schedule up here, you have to get.
The utilities, all that stuff, I think, could get in 180. but
Your excavator guy could get
Asbestos.
called for a bigger job and tell you he's not gonna be available for 2 months. It could snow 12 feet. You know, there could rain a ton. I don't know, it just seems like that's. 180 days seems to go quick.
I don't know.
I have a question, just to review for me. What, this applies to all structures?
So this section applies to alteration, relocation, or demolition of any non-designated structure that is over 75 years old.
Okay. And I mean, that includes all sheds and things.
It would be tough for me to figure out the age of a shed, given that I determine age based off of the Eagle County Assessor site, and they rarely have sheds ages listed. But theoretically, if the age is there, yes, that also includes those.
Well, I have a suggestion, but to ask you, Michelle, when we changed our code to if you were gonna upgrade a trailer, it had to be, it couldn't be more than 10% or the whatever the total value of it. Anyway, the beautiful thing was we got rid of some. We allowed some trailers to stay that work in this town and that are actually quite nice. And then we got rid of some trailers that needed to go. They were health hazards. What was the timeline on that? Are we being reasonable or unreasonable? I think we've probably have experience.
Madison, the biggest question seems to be the timeline on asbestos.
And as somebody who's not gone through trying to get an asbestos report before myself, I'm not sure what the timeline is. It's typically people just come to me with their reports.
Okay. I couldn't, and I also could not give, Kathy Biggs dealt with all of the asbestos issues in the condemned trailers when we had that occur back in 2018. So I also could not give a proper estimate on timeline for asbestos review and removal as needed. So I'm sorry that I don't have more insight on that front.
I do remember Jeff said that asbestos, we don't have anybody that does asbestos.
It's a
mitigation
permit through the state.
here.
Yes, and requires folks to come up to take a look.
Yeah.
I guess, I feel like we need more information. I like to think about it, so should we can consider a continuance? Or where does the board feel?
I mean, could we maybe add in addition on that to say the ability to extend if permitting has not been achieved under like reasonable circumstances?
You can.
I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Move on.
It would need direction from council would need to be given as to whether you would like to see that ability to extend provided via the council or request to council, or if that is a staff administrative determination.
I would think it was the staff.
I would too, I would say staff.
Problem solved. Can we just add that?
So the language that you would look for is to keep, do you want to keep the 100 days and allow for staff administrative determination to extend up to 365?
That sounds good.
Is that
If
acceptable?
warranted, if warranted.
If warranted, okay.
Okay, that works. Thank you, Eric.
And my pants. Job.
Okay, any other questions from Madison?
That just direction or we approve ordinance?
This is an ordinance.
Before we go there, first of all, I want to open it up for public hearing. Yeah, you got anybody out there?
No, we do not.
Nobody's interested in us tonight. Public hearing. I just had a question, just to. Not relevant right now, but I just want to, have there been any more nominations for any historic? Got the Historic Preservation Committee, I know we have, what, three?
Three.
Is that it?
Yes, current active nominations, yes.
Just wondering if we need to figure out a way to step that up. Well, maybe there hasn't been any housing projects that were needing to be nominated.
The impetus of this ordinance and the costs, the extensive costs associated with this ordinance would have indicated that the public was very interested in historic preservation. Given the outcry that we saw in this council chambers at the loss of a very important building to town, it has been a surprise that we have not seen almost any nominations come through to date. Town staff nominated the first, which was the tank in downtown Minturn. The saloon triggered a nomination with their redevelopment that they did. That's not right word. Yeah. And then there was an interest in a barn at a property over on the 400 block. Other than that, in the almost 2 years that we've had this ordinance, and this ordinance allows anyone out of the public, the Planning Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, the council, or the staff to make nominations. No nominations have come forward.
That's a process problem, I think. Would it be, I mean, I feel like, I mean, I don't know if anything's slipped through and somebody's torn down an over 75-year-old house in that time frame, but if so, I feel like maybe we need to, when a permit comes in or a project comes into planning, that should, and it is so over 75 years, is there a notification we're doing, or maybe make it we need to notify the town publicly?
They're notified publicly via signage at the property and an e-blast that goes out through the town channels and website.
And we're notified.
Yeah.
I think the ordinance has been really effective. I think these historic preservation ordinances are most effective in what people don't do. I think it's caused a change in how developers and individuals look at property in Minturn. And I think the fact that there's been no more demolitions has been significant. And people kind of know what are the important buildings in town. And they, there's a more of a hands-off attitude towards those. And I think that's what the ordinance was intended to accomplish.
So how many notifications have we sent out since the first three that were up for historic review?
You know that off the top of your head?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be good. I'd like it. Could you check on that for us and let us know?
Is everyone receiving the notifications?
I've seen them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Pretty good. It seems like there's been some that have come out.
So yes, the large poster boards get posted at the property itself for a full 2 weeks. And then as the ordinance identifies, it gets sent out via the town e-blast and gets listed on the town website.
Okay, well, to all our citizens, pay attention to the email blast that you receive, and if you think it's important, it's easy to designate it.
And I do think that a lot of people have changed their mind with respect to development plans for some of the historic properties of Minturn. And the impact of this is more on things not happening than happening.
We expect to see some demolition permits coming in, so pay attention.
Oh dear.
Indeed. Okay, with that, I'll close the hearing. Already, I don't know. Anyway, if there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion. Hey, sorry. Got anything?
No, I don't have anything further.
Okay,
I can make a motion to approve ordinance for series 2024, amending chapter 19 of the Historic Preservation Code to allow for noticing of demolition prior to permitting with the amendment that staff will make a decision to extend or giving staff judicial power to extend.
Authorizing staff administrative ability to extend the permitting period for up to 365 days as necessary, I think was what Lynn said.
Thank you very much.
I'll second that.
wish I could borrow your brain cells for a while. Okay, so motion by Terry, second by Gusty. Roll call, please.
Gusty, I.
Brian,
Eric, I.
Carry on.
Earl, aye.
Yeah.
All right. That is done.
Thank you.
All right, so my golly, there's no discussion items. Future agenda items.
Yes.
Here, Lynn?
I have a suggestion. I think the lack of available water taps in town is really a critical issue for Minturn for all sorts of reasons. And it's my understanding that the cemetery district uses a very large percentage of all the water that is used in Minturn. It's my further understanding that while some or all of that water may be taken directly from the Eagle River and not treated, that their water usage directly impacts the consumptive limits that restrict the amount of water available to the town of Minturn, and that these consumptive limits are the reason for the moratorium. I would like to suggest that we ask our water engineer, Christy Radenbaugh, to calculate how many more water taps would be available for the town of Minturn if the cemetery district were to voluntarily cut back on half of its water usage. And I don't know. Well, I guess I'll just leave that open for discussion.
Okay, so
Is-
thoughts, one that occurs to me. And I'm not sure what has happened. I know we did a long time ago, got a diversion right. At Cemetery Bridge for irrigation only.
That's right.
And is that still being used?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, for this Little Beach Park and stuff?
Little Beach, the cemetery, the lease lot and the bike park. But the cemetery has their own tap that calculates how much water they specifically get.
And that's untreated water.
It's untreated water, but like Lynn said, it counts against Minturn's senior consumptive use rights. Yes, it was included. So Minturn did this quite a few years ago where they added the Little Beach Park as an alternate point of diversion that counts against the senior ditch right.
And what about a well? If they were to get a right to a well, what would that entail? They didn't know they'd have to go to water court, and would that count against our consumptive use if we did something like that?
The town does not allow individual wells in town unless approved by the council. We have already one well at the cemetery that is used for their indoor water use. The town also has the ability to use that for our water use at the Public Works facility.
Just thoughts that occurred to me, but, any other thoughts from anybody? Gusty?
I'd be interested in investigating it. I guess I'd have a little bit of a concern now because that might help our consumptive use and our augmentation, but we want to definitely make sure that we're okay as far as with the additional 70 taps that we've just approved, and then the school district, if they're coming in with 120 indoor use, that we have enough treated water still, because, that's why we're looking at doing a water plant, because we want to make sure that we can, produce enough water too.
I think Rusty brings up a really good point, and I've actually gotten many phone calls in the past week about water in Minturn, and even from people at Malloy Park who are wondering, do we actually have the water to service the school district? Does concerned buyers at Minturn North that are wondering if Minturn actually has the water to service Minturn North. So it's quite interesting that you mentioned it in a memo or something, how there's a lot of misinformation going around, but I wonder if anybody would be interested, to Lynn's point and to Gusty's point, of having Christy, because so Christy, when we came up with the 70 taps in the water CIP in 2019, and I'm just thinking of this now, like we had certain things going on. We had 3 slow sand filters working. We had 2 wells. We had and that's a big one, the slow sand filters. But on the flip side of that, we have an extra tank. We're gonna rehab a tank, and we also put in this whole system that John Volk put in that is detecting leaks, because we have a system loss. So is it time to take a deep dive again and come up with a number? And that's just my thought. Christy actually came up with this number, and it was through a lot of research, and I don't know how expensive that was, but maybe we want to get another look, because things are different. There's a lot of moving parts, but it is different. You know what I mean? Like how much water we have.
Yeah, I think like when we talk about, I see on the agenda item, we've got a tiered rate structure discussion coming up. I think that falls under demand management as a kind of a comprehensive piece of this whole puzzle that we haven't really figured out. And there's so many other pieces and parts to demand management. There's voluntary and mandatory outdoor watering restrictions, and there's code updates to irrigation guidelines, and there's so many different things that we can do to address that. And what I guess I'm not clear on is like what you brought up, like what impact could that have on our needed investment on the water treatment plant project, our consumptive, or our use of rights, our moratorium, like what impacts could demand management provide the town? And I'm not 100% clear on that, and I would like to. So
If this, then that, like Lynn's saying, if we cut back 50%, what happens?
So I'm all that is important, but rather than opening the door to huge amount of work right away, what I'm thinking, and I might be wrong, but I'm thinking that if the cemetery district were willing voluntarily to cut back their water use by half, that could mean, who knows, 100 water taps.
they won't even fix their fence.
Exactly, but I think there would be. I think the public needs to know this.
Well, yeah.
And I don't think it would be that difficult for Christy Radenbaugh to figure that out. I think it would be a relatively simple calculation. Nothing that she does is simple, but and I think that would give us important information. about where in the short term we might want to go, not long term.
Could we add that into the tiered rate structure and just have a page addressing large commercial irrigation?
Possibly the
We can talk about
problem is that,
that's one slide.
It's a snowball going
the
down.
problem with that is that the cemetery district is extraordinarily well. So they might, not necessarily change any practices just because they ended up with a larger water bill.
Great way to lower rates for the rest of the town if.
That might be true. That's not saying you shouldn't do that. But in terms of having the ability to get more water tanks, which is something some of us feel is a critical priority right now for small developments and infill. This seems to me something we should know, that it's our fiduciary duty as council members to get the answer to this.
I think there's interest in putting this on a future agenda. Eric, go ahead.
Sorry, if I can just clarify on that one. I personally don't feel comfortable singling out a single entity like that. Just, I don't want to open ourselves up to any unfair practice or legal issues. I'd rather take a look at this as a more holistic view. You know, identifying all of the rate users, all the information available. I think going after the cemetery district specifically is a poor choice.
And just to clarify, Chrissy Radaball back in 2019, I believe it was, said that she was calculating that the system as it is now could handle the 120 SFEs in Malay Park and the 70 SFEs, correct me if I'm wrong, Minturn North. And so that plus Belden, they're all covered, correct?
I'll take it.
They're taken.
No mas.
Okay, so that's where we're at right now. So that,
However, we did put in a system loss system
Mhm.
to recoup.
Yeah.
And we haven't looked at that. And I get what you're saying, Eric, too. I thought of that, and however, we're in Colorado in a unique situation where there's less and less water coming down the pipe, and I think that the way that we govern is not equal in all anymore. I think it's consumptive use is a big no-no. You do not want to water the outside because it disappears.
Right. No, I completely agree with that.
And it doesn't matter whether we're gonna be forward thinking now. We're going to have to be in 20 years because it's gonna dwindle. And then it's gonna be emergency measures. And people's lawns are gonna be brown. I mean, I think if we offer the incentives to go xeriscape and now, I think that's something this council. I think that's what we started. I think that's where we should be moving in the direction we should be.
Do we know, Christie, when she figured the 120 and the 70, if she did that with consumptive use or if she did that what our actual plant could produce with those numbers?
Christie did that based on the water in the river, which is different than what the plant can produce.
Right, and I think Terry touched on it too. Back in 19, we probably had more filters that were running. And it seems like we've dwindled down to just the one. That might change what we actually could produce too. Because if I remember right, we were talking like 80 on one well, 60 on a well, and 60 on filter 3. So that's not very good. That's
What-
200.
Yeah, if I can summarize what I'm hearing from everyone, is that there's interest in understanding the value of water savings that can be achieved through the limitation of outdoor sprinkler and irrigation accounts. So that would be a way to not single out one particular user, but we have a grand total of 6. Outdoor irrigation and sprinkler accounts, which are the primary drivers for consumptive use, which go against our water rights that really hurt us in August and September. That combined with the understanding of how much more, if Christie comes back and says, oh, if this were cut by half, I'm throwing out a number. Christie were to come back and say, if you cut outdoor irrigation in the summer, outdoor water use by these 6 users by half, you could get, in theory, this many more taps. Well, then that number would still have to go and be vetted against what the plant can physically produce in order to understand the final number that could be achievable. That's what I'm hearing from council.
And I just want to make the point, I don't mean to discriminate against any entity. The only reason I'm talking about the Minturn Cemetery District is because I've heard and that they use as much as 40% of all the water in Minturn. 40% of our consumptive amount. So it's way out of proportion to the use. They use almost as much as all the rest of the town together. So
That's during 3 months. We're talking about like peak shaving, really, like over
I would just,
May through September, right? Of like any outdoor water use. We don't even have voluntary and mandatory like set restrictions in place, like all the Front Range does, that like if certain things happen, that they're triggered and like we have like mandatory restrictions.
Odd and even number.
And then if we like a
addresses,
call
how
happening,
many
it triggers
areas.
mandatory outdoor restriction, yeah. That's all.
and this is my last meeting, but I would just encourage
Yes.
us all to, restrictions are obviously a great way to accomplish something, but I think that governments have more success with incentive-based law where I mean, I've actually looked at this, I've looked at cemeteries because they are a huge water user. And there's many cemeteries in Colorado, Arizona that go with different design. You know, how do we change what it looks like? How do we help? How do we guide? And I think that's how I mean that's how I've looked at it. I've pulled up a bunch of articles. I think I sent it to Michelle. Look at this cemetery. And so there's ways to encourage users to think outside the box, their typical box.
And I think that's very wise what you're saying. I'm not talking about prohibiting. I'm just talking about finding out what the impact would be.
Yeah.
Just knowing what is happening with our water. I'm talking about knowing what's going on. I think this is really important and our town needs to know that.
I'm in favor of looking at it.
Well, why don't we do this? I think Michelle is planning on talking to Christie soon anyway, so she could maybe just have a phone conversation with Christie with these thoughts and see what kind of number it comes up with, and then she knows the future schedule more better than I do. But she can suggest a recommended time to have a discussion item about this. But I think it's definitely worth pursuing. That work for you?
It sounds like we have at least forward agreement. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Well, then,
Any other future things? So if anybody happens to watch this meeting, election April 2nd, everybody get out and vote. Very important. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I will make my last motion. I will make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
A motion by Terry, seconded by Gussie, all in favor?
Thanks. That's fun. Excellent. A good run.
Yes, it was.
Yes. I hope you're